mastering landscape photography. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys the most important things I personally learned through my last 10 years of shooting landscape photos. Composition is key. There's no such thing as a great photo without a great composition. Here are 5 of my favorite compositional techniques that I always look for when I'm out shooting landscape photos. Number 1 is going to be leading lines. Leading lines can be anything that leads your viewer's eyes straight to the subject of your photo. A basic and pretty straightforward example of this is going to be the lines through the middle of a road. As you can see in this example photo, the lines down at the bottom of the frame on the road are going to be leading the viewer's eyes up into the mountains, which is going to be the subject of my image here. Number 2 is going to be natural framing. Natural framing is anything natural, obviously, when you're out shooting landscape photos that frames your subject. So for example, let's say you're at a lake and you were going to be shooting through a window through the trees up at the mountain, which is going to be the subject of your photo. Number 3, adding something in the foreground. I typically do this when I'm out shooting a scene that might seem quote unquote boring, or if there's no other compositional technique I can use. So if we look at this example photo here, I obviously could have stood up and just taken a regular photo of the mountain, but in this instance, I wanted to add the flowers in the foreground to add a little more depth and make that composition just a little more interesting overall. Number 4 is going to be using reflections. This can most commonly be used at a lake when you're shooting during sunset or sunrise. And the 5th and final compositional technique we're going to cover today is going to be layering. Layering is going to be when you add different points of interest at different parts of your composition. So if we look at this example photo here, you'll see in the bottom of the frame, there's going to be flowers, which is going to be a point of interest. In the middle is going to have the river, which is going to be another point of interest. And then the top of the image is going to have those peaks up there, which is going to be another point of interest. When I'm out shooting, I usually try to do at least one of these things compositionally. If you want to get more advanced or creative, you can combine these, such as leading lines and adding something in the foreground. Here's an example of that. Next up, we're going to have how to expose correctly. Obviously, exposing correctly is going to be subjective because everyone has their own way they want their photos to look. Personally, I like my photos to look pretty balanced out overall. And the way I'm able to do this is by exposing for the highlights. Exposing for the highlights will allow me to retain all the details, and it'll make it easier to achieve the look I want to when I'm editing in post. Kind of a motto I have when I'm out shooting is that I would rather bring up the shadows I'm editing than bring down the highlights. Next up, you need to know how to understand light and how different light will affect your photos. For example, if you're shooting in the sun, you will be shooting in harsher light, meaning that the shadows will be darker and the highlights will be brighter. Shooting in the sun will also make your colors more vibrant. And the opposite of that is going to be when you're shooting in cloudy weather. This means you'll be shooting in softer light. This means the shadows will be a lot shallower and the highlights will be a lot softer. This means the colors will be a lot softer and the overall image will be more flat. And if you guys do enjoy this type of content, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe to the channel. I make weekly education videos along with photo recaps and vlogs of my trips. Next up, we just got a few miscellaneous tips that I think will be helpful for you guys to know next time you're out shooting. Always make sure you're shooting your photos in RAW. Shooting your photos in RAW will give you the most flexibility possible when you're editing. Also, don't be afraid to play with your f-stop when you're out shooting a scene. Try shooting at like f2.8, f4 so you can get some nice depth in the foreground, and then go on the other side of that and shoot at, f11 or f16 so you can get the whole frame sharp. Last but not least, I recommend shooting the same scene in different focal lengths. This will give you the ability to capture the entire scene as well as the details, giving you the ability to round out your set of images. Alright, so that is going to wrap up this video here. Thank you guys for watching. If there is something you guys want me to cover in this next educational video next week, comment that down below. I will be checking all those out and taking that into consideration next time I film. But yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Peace.